welcome to the History in Focus channel. In today's video, you will see rare photos with incredible stories. Be sure to rate the video. This is Alan Pinkerton, the man who founded the first espionage agency in the United States. Furthermore, Pinkerton played a key role in thwarting a conspiracy to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln in 1861. During the Civil War, he served as the head of the Union's intelligence service, laying the groundwork for what would become the U.S. Secret Service. His vision and actions during one of the most turbulent periods in American history, including the Battle of Antietam, set standards for security and espionage that persist to this day. This is Fort Sumter, located in South Carolina, where the first shots of the American Civil War were fired in April 1861. This fort witnessed the beginning of one of the most significant conflicts in the history of the United States. On April 12, Confederate forces began an intense bombardment that lasted 34 hours, leading to the surrender of the Union troops defending the location. Despite several attempts to retake it over the following years, Fort Sumter only returned to Union control in 1865. Yorktown, Virginia, was the scene of the American troops landing at the White House, Virginia, marking the Peninsula Campaign from May to August 1862. This crucial battle took place during the American Civil War, deciding the fate of the East. The Union's victory strengthened its position and weakened the Confederates, leading to the eventual triumph of the Union and the end of slavery in the USA. Near Petersburg, Virginia, in June 1864, Union forces captured a Confederate camp during the American Civil War. This event was part of a series of intense battles aimed at cutting off supply lines to the Southern Army, weakening its defenses. The capture of this camp helped to shift the balance of the war in favor of the Union, leading to significant steps towards the end of the conflict. In 1863, from the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Indiana in Washington, D.C., one could see the Trinity Episcopal Church in the foreground, with the imposing Capitol building in the background, still under construction. Despite a brief pause due to the Civil War, the construction of the Capitol continued, symbolizing the perseverance and growth of the United States during a turbulent period. This scene captures the blend of faith, politics, and the determination to build the nation, even in times of conflict. These were the fortifications in Yorktown, Virginia, that played a crucial role. Built to protect the region, these structures were part of the Confederate defense strategy against the advancing Union forces. The presence of these fortifications marks an intense period of military engineering and war tactics, reflecting the strategic importance of Yorktown in the fight for territorial control. A photo from March 1863 of the USS Essex. The vessel stood out as an imposing armored river gunboat on the waters of the Mississippi River. Weighing in at 1,000 tons, it started as a steam-powered ferry before being transformed into a tool of war by the U.S. Army in 1861, and later transferred to the Navy in 1862. During the American Civil War, the USS Essex was instrumental in key operations, including the captures of Baton Rouge and Port Hudson. The 150th Pennsylvania Infantry Camp at Belle Plaine, Virginia, is depicted in March 1862, 3 weeks before the Battle of Chancellorsville. This camp was a temporary home for the soldiers who would soon face one of the most intense confrontations of the American Civil War. The image of this moment captures the preparation and anticipation before the turmoil of battle, reflecting the tension and hope of the men who fought for the nation's union. Morris Island, South Carolina. The shattered muzzle of a 300-pound Parrott rifle after bursting, photographed in July or August 1863. These rifles, known for their power and range, were fundamental in the artillery of the time, capable of reaching distances of over 4 kilometers. The failure of this particular model highlights the technical challenges and dangers faced by both sides in the American Civil War amid innovations in armaments. On the steps of the Tennessee State Capitol building in Nashville, Tennessee, with covered guns, bottom right corner, installed nearby, in 1864. This moment captures the gravity of the American Civil War, showing how even spaces dedicated to governance and public debate were transformed into strategic defense positions. The presence of these guns in the political heart of Tennessee underscores the closeness of the conflict and the readiness for battle, symbolizing the fusion of war efforts and civilian life. Inflation of the Intrepid, a hydrogen gas balloon used by the Union Army Balloon Corps for aerial reconnaissance. The Balloon Corps operated a total of 7 balloons, with the Intrepid being favored by Chief Aeronaut Thaddeus Lowe. These balloons provided an aerial view of the battlefields, allowing the Union Army to gain crucial information about enemy positions. In Alexandria, Virginia, in August 1863, this storefront at 283 Duke Street bore a grim inscription, "Price, Birch and Company, Dealers in Slaves." This address was, in fact, part of one of the most infamous slave markets in the United States, a brutal reminder of the inhumane practice of trading human beings. Even amid the American Civil War, a conflict largely centered on the issue of slavery, places like this continued to operate, symbolizing resistance against change in the struggle for freedom and equality that defined this tumultuous era. Cannonballs stacked, possibly seen from an arsenal yard in Washington, District of Columbia. These munitions, ready to be used on the battlefield, symbolize the preparation and military might at a crucial moment in history. The organization and quantity of these cannonballs reflect the scale and seriousness with which the war was approached. Wounded soldiers resting near Mary's Heights, Fredericksburg, Virginia, after the Battle of Spotsylvania, in 1864. The image of these men resting, many dealing with physical wounds and traumas, reflects the harsh reality of the American Civil War. This moment of calm in the midst of the storm of war highlights the human cost of the conflict. This was the CSS Stonewall, a 1,390-ton ironclad built in Bordeaux, France, intended to strengthen the Confederate Navy during the American Civil War. Upon crossing the Atlantic and arriving in Havana, Cuba, in May 1865, it was discovered that the war had already ended. With no further purpose for its original mission, the CSS Stonewall was seized by Spanish authorities and soon after was handed over to the U.S. government. Dead horses surround the damaged tropsail house, a result of the Battle of Gettysburg, in July 1863. Union General, Major General Daniel Sickles, used the farmhouse as his headquarters. During the battle, both Union and Confederate troops engaged in fierce fighting around and between the farm buildings, leaving behind a trail of destruction, including dead horses scattered across the property. This grim scene once again shows the brutal cost of war, not just in human lives but also in the suffering of the animals involved and the destruction of property. An execution in Washington, District of Columbia, on November 10, 1865. Henry Wirz, former commander of the Confederate prisoner of war camp near Andersonville, Georgia, was tried and hanged after the war for conspiracy and murder due to his management of the notorious camp, where inhumane conditions led to the death of about 13,000 Union prisoners. His execution, one of the few Civil War military trials that resulted in the death penalty, symbolizes the pursuit of justice and accountability for the horrors committed in prisoner camps during the conflict. These African Americans were photographed preparing cotton to be processed by a cotton gin at the Smith Plantation on Port Royal Island, South Carolina. The presence of African American workers in this specific role highlights the economic importance of cotton and the reliance on slave labor that was soon to be challenged by the advance of the war and subsequent emancipation. Officers of the 69th New York Infantry at Fort Corcoran, Virginia, with Colonel Michael Corcoran. This image, captured during the American Civil War, shows the camaraderie and determination of Union soldiers, including the respected leader Corcoran. Fort Corcoran served as an important strategic defense point during the conflict, highlighting the vital participation of Union troops in protecting the borders and maintaining order. A federal camp on the Pamunkey River, Cumberland Landing, Virginia, in May 1862. This scene portrays the presence of Union forces in a strategic position along the river during the American Civil War. The camp served as a base for military and logistical operations, reflecting the commitment of Union troops to control important waterways and key territories in the struggle for control of the South. Federal cavalry at Sudley Ford, Virginia, after the First Bull Run battle in March 1862. This image depicts the ongoing presence of Union forces in the region after the initial conflict. Cavalry played a crucial role in the Civil War, patrolling strategic areas and ensuring the security of troops. Petersburg, Virginia, the first wagon of the Federal Army entering the city in April 1865. This image marks a crucial point in the unfolding of the American Civil War, as it represents the entry of Union forces into one of the last Confederate strongholds. The fall of Petersburg was a significant blow to the Confederates and a milestone in the Union's march towards final victory. This wagon symbolizes the imminent liberation of the city and the impending end of the conflict, bringing hope to those who had long endured the horrors of war. The Federal Ironclad Galena, after recent action with Confederate batteries at Drury's Bluff on the James River in Virginia. This image, captured around 1862, highlights the ferocity of naval engagements during the American Civil War. The Galena, like many warships of the time, faced enemy fire while defending the strategic waters of the James River. This photo is a testament to the naval conflict that shaped the course of the war and the history of the United States. Interior of a ward at Harewood General Hospital in Washington, D.C. in 1864. Harewood was opened in September 1862 and closed in May 1866, after the end of the war. This hospital provided crucial care to wounded soldiers during and after the conflict. This image bears witness to the dedication and care of healthcare professionals amidst the challenging conditions of the time. White House Landing on the Pamunkey River, Virginia. The site was a vital supply base for the Union Army in 1862 during the Peninsula Campaign, serving as a crucial point for transporting supplies and reinforcements to Union troops, allowing the continuity of military operations along the peninsula. A Union black soldier sits in front of a slave auction house on Whitehall Street in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1864. The sign reads "Auction and Sales of Negroes," a sad reminder of the inhumane slave trade that plagued the United States for decades. This image is a testimony to the struggle for freedom and equality during the American Civil War, when black soldiers fought not only for the Union but also for the liberation of their brothers and sisters who were still under the oppression of slavery. Rebel fortifications in front of Atlanta, Georgia, in 1863 or 1864. These structures, designed to protect the city from the advances of Union forces, bear witness to the intensity of the conflict in the region. Atlanta, a crucial strategic and industrial center, was at the heart of several military campaigns during the war. African Americans gather the remains of fallen soldiers near Cold Harbor, Virginia, in April 1865. This poignant image illustrates the tragic reality of the Civil War, where people of all backgrounds were affected by the devastation of the conflict. African Americans played a crucial role in the war, both as soldiers and as workers who cared for the wounded and the dead. This act of gathering the remains of fallen soldiers is a testament to humanity and respect for those who sacrificed their lives on the battlefield. A floating bridge near Petersburg, Virginia, in April 1865. This structure likely played a crucial role in transporting troops and supplies during the American Civil War, facilitating the movement of Union forces in the final campaign to capture Petersburg, a key Confederate stronghold. The camp of the Tennessee Colored Battery, portrayed during the Siege of Vicksburg in Johnsonville, Tennessee, in 1864. This image offers a glimpse into the lives of African American soldiers who served bravely during the American Civil War. The Siege of Vicksburg was a decisive battle that had a significant impact on the course of the conflict, and the presence of the Tennessee Colored Battery highlights the contribution of black soldiers to the Union cause. serving as a uniformed soldier and receiving regular pay from the army, a former slave. In the center, with hands in pockets, stands with other federal soldiers at the winter headquarters of the Army of the Potomac near Fredericksburg, Virginia. This image is a powerful testament to social change during the American Civil War, showing a former slave now serving as a uniformed soldier and receiving regular army pay. His presence among the soldiers reflects the increasing inclusion of African Americans in Union military ranks and the crucial role they played in the fight for freedom in Union. Bodies of soldiers lie on the ground in front of the Dunker Church, after the Battle of Antietam, in Maryland, in September 1862. The Dunker Church, a sacred site turned battlefield, witnesses the brutality of combat and the sacrifice of the soldiers involved. This poignant scene serves as a lasting reminder of the cost of war and the need to pursue peace and reconciliation. A group of the 50th New York Engineers builds a road on the south bank of the North Anna River, near Jericho Mills, Virginia, on May 24, 1864. This image captures the hard work and skill of military engineers during the American Civil War. The construction of this road was vital for the advance of Union troops and demonstrates the importance of logistics and infrastructure during the conflict. Confederate dead are scattered near a fence on the Hagerstown Road, after the Battle of Antietam, in Maryland, in September 1862. The worn fence alongside adds a touch of desolation to the scene, highlighting the brutality of the conflict and the high price paid by both sides. A view of the burned district of Richmond, Virginia, and the capital across the Canal Basin, in 1865. The city was besieged by Union forces for over 9 months during the Siege of Petersburg, after which Confederate General Robert E. Lee's army abandoned the devastated city in April 1865. The Baptist Church in Fredericksburg, Virginia, photographed in the yard of the Sanitary Commission Depot on May 20, 1864, after the city was damaged in 2 major battles of the war. The presence of the church, a symbol of faith and community, among the rubble and debris, highlights the resilience of the people of Fredericksburg in the face of the adversities of war. The ruins of a heavily damaged roundhouse in Atlanta, Georgia, after the Atlanta campaign in the summer of 1864. After Union Major General William T. Sherman captured the city, he began his destructive march to the sea, eventually taking the port of Savannah on December 21. The ruins of the roundhouse serve as a lasting reminder of the consequences of war and the price paid for military conquest. A view of Columbia, South Carolina, seen from the Capitol, after the occupation by the Union Army in 1865, reveals the devastation inflicted upon the city during the American Civil War. Much of Columbia was destroyed during the occupation, leaving behind a landscape of desolation and ruin.